Good afternoon, and I would like to welcome everyone to the February 24th, 2022 work session of the Henrico County School Board. As a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed on the Henrico Schools page. Colleagues, the first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that the school board approve the agenda for today's meeting.
Motion made by Reverend Cooper. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Kinsella. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I move that the school board go into closed session for the discussion of matters covered under items A1 of section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Conduct of Virginia, Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, pertaining to the assignment, appointment, performance, disciplining, and release of contract for specific school board employees.
Thank you. Motion made by Mrs. Ogburn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Atkins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We will now go into closed session. We will reconvene the work session at the conclusion of our closed meeting. Welcome back, board members. Is there a motion to certify closed session?
I move the school board certify by a recorded vote that to the best of each school board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion authorizing the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting.
Motion made by Ms. Kinsella. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Atkins. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The closed session has been certified. For the next item on the agenda, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Cashwell.
Thank you, Chair Shea. Good afternoon, members of the board. So the first item I have is a brief review of the previously shared recommended fiscal year 2022-2023 annual financial plan. As you know, you've seen an initial proposal there. You have the budget documents. We also held a public hearing, and Mr. Wack is going to come forward and do a brief overview again of the contents of that recommended budget, and I will be asking for your approval of the recommended financial plan at our monthly meeting later.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Cashwell. Again, we had public input in December at the public input session. We also had the public hearing on February 10th. So today we are going to be seeking your approval in the evening meeting and just wanted to briefly highlight the main components of the budget proposal. So the general fund budget is increasing by about $23 million or 4.1%, and that comes from the target we received from the county manager. Our debt service budget is increasing about 10%, and that's associated with previously approved capital projects. Our school nutrition budget about 5%, and that's primarily due to benefits adjustments as well as compensation. And finally, our state and federal grants are increasing 8.1% or about $6.2 million, but that is primarily due to about $4.5 million in recurring personnel costs from our ESSER 2 and 3 grants for 61 positions. So in total, the operating budget is increasing about $35 million or 4.9% in the recommended budget. And again, we want to highlight that the budget at this time does not include funding for across the board salary increases that will be awarded to county and schools employees later in the process. And just in summary of the general fund budget, our expenditures are increasing to about $584 million. The lion's share of our budget is remaining in the instruction category at about 76%. In terms of general fund revenue, the increase of $23 million again comes from the target amount from the county manager, and that will come from a combination of county funds as well as additional state revenue. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time, but again, we'll be seeking your approval this evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wack. I'll start with Reverend Cooper. Do you have any additional comments on the budget?
No, ma'am, I don't. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Ogburn?
I do not.
Ms. Atkins?
No, I do not.
Ms. Kinsella?
No comments outside of just my enthusiasm, and I'm sure my colleagues share it, of how excited we are about this budget. And then I just can't wait to hear what the across-the-board raise number is once numbers are finalized in March. Thank you so much.
Ma'am?
Thank you. And Mr. Wack, I just have one question. How could this budget perhaps be impacted when the state budget is passed?
So the county administration kind of works with the assumptions that came out in Governor Northam's budget, and that we are now able to see that there are competing versions at the House and Senate level. So essentially, we'll have to see where that lands in terms of how much revenue would be. So I mentioned that our general fund budget's increasing. The target increased $23 million, and a portion of that we'd have to decide how much of that would be coming from additional state revenue once the state budget is finalized.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you again, Mr. Wack, and members of the board for your continued input and feedback as we've developed this proposed budget. I look forward to getting that approved and, of course, the next steps related to employee compensation later in the spring. For the next item, we have our health and safety, our COVID-19 health and safety update for Henrico County Public Schools, and Dr. Teigen is coming forward with that item. Dr. Teigen.
Good afternoon, Madam Shea, members of the board, and Dr. Cashwell. I am here again this afternoon to provide the COVID-19 health and safety update. Well, we'll see. I don't either, but thank you. Today's agenda, and you have my presentation, right? Okay.
I think it just advanced.
She's taking care of it.
She got it, okay.
Yes. Today's agenda includes a review of the efforts to vaccinate and provide boosters to students and staff, an update on our COVID testing efforts, revisions to the volunteer guidance for school leaders, and modifications to outdoor recess guidance. So starting with vaccinations. The Virginia Department of Health continues to provide vaccinations at the remainder of our Title I elementary schools. And these schools, again, are listed on the slide. These are school-based clinics, and only students enrolled in those schools are permitted to participate in the vaccination clinics. And again, students, the vaccination requires written permission from the parent. They occur during the school day without the parent required to be present. And families should be receiving information directly from their principal. The first vaccination clinic at each of these schools will be completed by March 10th. And then the second clinics, the follow-ups for the second immunization, will be completed by March 31st. In addition to these elementary vaccination clinics, our VDH partners will be providing additional Saturday clinics at Fairfield and Elko Middle School so that students, their families, and staff may receive their COVID booster if they completed their primary series at least 6 months ago. Students ages 5 and up may also receive their first and/or second dose of the vaccine. In addition to the Pfizer vaccine for those students that are 5 years and older, they're also, for the individuals that are 18 and older, going to have the Moderna and Johnson & Johnson vaccines available at these clinics, as well as the Moderna boosters. And the first of the Saturday clinics will be held this Saturday at Fairfield Middle School. And the following Saturday, the Virginia Department of Health and their partner pharmacy will be at Elko Middle School. As a reminder, the Virginia Department of Health and Henrico County Public Schools staff have collaborated with Henrico Education Foundation, Henrico PALS, and the YMCA to provide targeted vaccination opportunities for our after-school program students and their families. These clinics are focused on students and families that participate in the after-school programs, but they are also open to the community at large. These are walk-in clinics where the individuals complete a consent form provided on-site at the event. All persons under the age of 18 must be accompanied by an authorizing parent or guardian to be able to receive a vaccination at these events. And parents are able to provide consent when they pick their child up at the after-school programs. And these clinics were specifically scheduled from 4 to 7 p.m., so it was convenient for the parent pickup. These clinics will also have the Moderna and Johnson & Johnson vaccines available for those who are 18 and older, and those Moderna boosters. 3 of the first round after-school clinics have already been completed, and those were Greenwood, Skipwith, and Penchback, and the other schools will be, they'll have their first clinics soon. They will also be following up with a second clinic to ensure that they are able to receive the complete series. Now, let's transition to testing. Test to Stay is an extra layer of prevention combined with vaccination and other mitigation strategies, and participation in the program allows students identified as close contacts through school or community exposure who are not fully vaccinated to continue in-person learning during their quarantine period if they test negative for COVID each day. Test to Stay requires those close contacts to take a test every morning or every evening for 5 days after exposure. If the test is negative, they are allowed to come to school. They must also, though, wear a mask and remain symptom-free for 10 days after exposure. Transitioning to screening testing, the latest VDOE and VDOH guidance for school divisions reiterates the importance of screening testing as a vital mitigation effort. Consistent with the newest guidance, we continue to participate in the VISTA program. The VISTA program provides take-home tests for students who present with COVID-like symptoms or have been identified as a close contact from a school or community exposure. Having these test kits is important to our families as they test to reduce quarantine times without requiring a doctor's visit. The screening of winter athletes is another program that falls under VISTA. While testing was not available at the start of fall sports, it was available to HCPS prior to the start of winter sports. The division opted to implement VISTA screening testing of winter athletes and their coaches. Weekly testing included all athletic programs at the middle and high schools. Part of the rationale for focusing on winter sports is that they were held indoors. As HCPS prepares to transition into spring sports, there's been much discussion at the health committee meetings as well as the leadership team about whether to continue screening testing for spring athletes. The CDC and VDH key factors to guide local decision-making were examined and considered. The low number of student outbreaks, the strong vaccination rate of individuals age 5 and older, and the wide availability of the Test to Stay program and the take-home test kits in schools, as well as the outdoor nature of spring sports, the Health Committee recommended screening testing not continue through the spring sports season. In addition to the key factors for local decision-making, it's important to note that the committee also discussed the feasibility of continuing with the program due to logistical factors, such as increased numbers of athletes and insufficient vendor and HCPS staff to meet the increased needs. This recommendation is supported by the leadership team. This information will be communicated to families of spring athletes this week as tryouts and tomorrow. And lastly, we have the take-home kits for staff. They continue to be available at every HCPS school or work site for staff members. These test kits are rapid tests and are available They may get one each week, unless, of course, they're participating in tests to stay for our staff, of which they can get additional tests. This is in addition to having access to priority appointments for PCR tests at the county's test locations. The final topics for today are related to volunteers in school and outdoor recess. At the last board meeting, the board requested the Health Committee revisit the volunteer guidance given recent milestones reached as a school division related to vaccination rates and test availability. The Health Committee did review the current 3-tier system and recommended moving to a 2-tier system, which is shown on this slide. Again, the revised guidance is a result of examining and considering the key factors to guide local decision-making, such as the number of student outbreaks, the vaccination rate of individuals aged 5 years of age and older, and the availability of testing within the schools. Essentially, when the community transmission level is high or substantial, volunteers may now work inside or outside the school buildings. When inside the building, volunteers would not be permitted in classrooms, the cafeteria, or gym, but they would be able to be in office areas and copy room and other places like that. When the community transmission level falls below 50 new cases per 100,000 in that 7-day period, and the positivity rate is 5% is less than 5%, in the past 7 days, then volunteers may work in classrooms, the cafeteria, and gym. The leadership team supported the rationale and the revised 2-tier system for volunteers, and this guidance will take effect on Monday, February 28th, 2022. And as a reminder, school principals approve and coordinate volunteer efforts in their individual buildings. This chart represents guidance for administrators when related to when and how volunteers may be used. In addition to discussion and rationale around volunteer guidelines, the Health Committee recommended and the leadership reviewed and approved revised guidelines for outdoor recess. While masks have always been optional for students when outdoors, the recommendation is to no longer require single cohorts in outdoor play areas, but consideration should be given to the size of the area and the total number of students to determine new larger cohorts. It is also important that schools are monitoring the participants in these larger cohorts in case there is a need to contact trace due to an outbreak. While the change in the volunteer and outdoor recess guidelines are shifting slightly, continued monitoring of outbreaks will be important to ensure the continued health and safety of our students and staff. And at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Tigan. I'll start with Ms. Offern.
Just one quick question. The testing that you mentioned, that staff can use the county site.
Yes.
How are we getting that information to them? How do they sign up? That kind of thing.
That's been communicated each time that the newsletter goes out, that the clipboard goes out to our staff, and it tells them the process is going through Oracle, and so they have that, and it has links in it, so it helps guide them through the process.
Yeah, I was just going to say, they actually, all staff received initially an email from me, and it included the information about Oracle, and then twice again in our clipboard newsletter. So that's been, I think, well communicated, and hopefully, if any employee would have a question, once they run into that scenario, I think school staff are well prepared to help walk them through it, whether it be the nurse or any other on the administrative team.
I just think that's such a great benefit for our teachers and staff to be able to have that access. That's all for me. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tigan,
You're welcome.
as always.
Thank you. Ms. Atkins?
No questions at this time.
Thank you.
Reverend Cooper?
Thank you, Chairwoman Shea. So first, Dr. Tigan, I just want to commend our staff for how they have continued to implement our mitigation strategies, and always happy to hear about low number of student outbreaks. So it definitely is indicative of the work that they're doing. Dr. Cashwell, you or Dr. Tigan, so since we've shifted to mask optional, can either of you share the temperature, how's it going, what's the feedback? I'd love to hear that, anecdotally, please.
I'm fine, I think obviously I'm a little bit more data driven sometimes on things, and, we've been obviously monitoring outbreaks and we've actually seen a decrease in time over the last few weeks, and that even includes the time without mask. And so that's one thing. And I think that from what I've heard and seen in schools is that it's sort of a new normal that individuals are understanding the choice. I think the questions rely more on staff and wanting to know where their choice is.
I would just mention that, when you, I think, ask about the temperature, we continue to emphasize the idea of tolerance and respect and respecting choices and individual differences. And so while that's always been something we've emphasized through our morning meetings and some of our other advisory blocks, it's part of our SEL curriculum, I think when there has been some tension, whether it's between students or staff and students, I think our administrators, our school counselors, our staff are prepared to have the conversations with our students related to respect and tolerance and helping to foster that and continue. So I'm not going to say there haven't been some difficult moments, but I think we have the right resources to lean on, and our staff are well equipped to help walk our families and students through any issues there. We want to be respectful of everyone's thoughts related to this matter.
No, I appreciate that, because I'm sure there's different feelings for staff members as well as for students, but as long as they know that we are 100% behind them as far as resource allocation and communication, I think that makes a big difference. So thank you both for that kind of update. Dr. Tigan, can you talk a little bit more in regards pertaining to our vaccination clinics, how they're going? Are the numbers going up, down, or are they flatlined?
It varies from school to school, but we're still having good turnout at our elementary schools. Of course, this is the first Saturday in a long time that we'll have done them at the middle schools for those booster shots, as well as picking up people who may be wanting to get their first or second in the series. And so it's hard to tell because there's no registration. At least in our schools, we know how many parents are returning forms and how that's going. And that's still been going well at our Title I elementary schools. Only time will tell on the other clinics since they're walk-in. But I will tell you, we are seeing the percentage go up more significantly when you're looking at the 5 and older group. It seems like the percentage is jumping more each week in that range than when you're just looking at some of the upper age groups. So I feel like when you're looking at Henrico, you're seeing the impact of what the VDH and our schools are doing in our schools to help, provide that easy access for our families.
I appreciate you sharing in your presentation the symbiotic relationship between VDH and Henrico and how the collaborative commitment that we both have has had an indelible mark as far as this is concerned. So thanks. And last for me is encouraging to see progress being made in our volunteer and outdoor recess guidelines. I think it says that we are definitely cognizant of the changes that we can make when we can make them. And I think it lets everyone know that we are trying to continuously move the meter on the new normal. So thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Kinsella?
Yes, I appreciate Reverend Cooper asking the question about the transition. How is it going, across the division in our schools in response to the new law that was passed? So I appreciate you asking that, Reverend Cooper, and I appreciate the answer. Along that same line, in the new law that we're following with the option to mask or not on behalf of students, I know at the last meeting just recently, you mentioned employee interest in the optional mask. I know I've received some questions about what about the employees, and that's a Department of Labor rule that we're following currently. And then as I read current guidance, as other things are changing, do we expect this guidance to change as well and to at some point offer employees optional? And as a part of that, what about volunteers?
Yeah, we continue to, I think to your point, look at, as things are ever changing, the landscape related to the Dolly standards you're mentioning, they are under review right now. We expect that they would be repealed given the process that's underway. So we are watching that closely. We're also collaborating again with the health department, our county government counterparts related to practices that are in place, not only for county employees, but also for visitors coming to county properties. So we are continuing to look at that and of course monitoring the change in landscape related to, again, increased vaccination rates, increased testing availability, and that community transition continuing to come down. So as we make any adjustments there, we would communicate that to our staff and families. But you're absolutely right, Mrs. Kinsella, those are the factors in play here that we continue to monitor and are seeing some shifting landscape there.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's all I have, Chair Shea.
Thank you, Ms. Kinsella. Thank you so much for going back and looking into the volunteer guidance. I know I've gotten a lot of questions about that. I think it's really important, as you noted, that the principal has kind of the final say in their building because they know what's truly helpful and manageable for their building. While 50 cases may seem a long way away, we're certainly headed the right direction with our community spread and the right direction quickly, right? We were at 900 cases, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then at 400, and now we're under 200. And so we're headed the right way quickly. So thank you again for revisiting those items. Anything else, colleagues? All right, thank you, Dr. Tigan.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. My mic was off. Thank you, Dr. Tigan, and again, board members, for your excellent questions as we continue to monitor all things COVID-19 health and safety related. Our next item, again, is a presentation that we sort of nodded to during our strategic plan overview. You know, one of our strategic plan goals is certainly focused on the recruitment and retention of a high-quality workforce. And so we promised you a more in-depth update on some of the efforts in that arena. And so we do have that presentation for you, and Mrs. Bolden, our Chief of Human Resources, is joined by Mrs. Jackson, and they are going to walk us through that presentation. Mrs. Bolden?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, Board Chair Shea, members of the board, and Dr. Cashwell.
I'm going to have you just get a little closer to the mic. We're not able to hear you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Board Chair Shea, members of the board, and Dr. Cashwell. I am Francine Bolden, Chief Human Resources Officer, and with me today to share information regarding teacher recruitment and retention is Kenya Jackson, Talent Acquisition Ambassador. I'm going to make sure it... Doesn't matter.
Please pardon our pause as we figure out how to make sure our presenters can advance the slides.
It shouldn't be. I think you took it out.
Okay, thank you. The January Destination 2025 Progress Update contained data pertaining to teacher and student demographics as well as teacher retention. We saw that teacher and student demographic data for school year 21-22 remains fairly consistent with our baseline data in 2018-19. While this data trend is reflective of national demographics, the school division is cognizant of the benefits of recruiting, retaining, and rewarding a diverse workforce, goals which are inherent in our strategic plan. The January update also conveyed a 91% teacher retention rate for 2021, which is a 2% increase from the baseline year. While this is an excellent retention rate, because Henrico is a large division, Even single-digit turnover rates equate to triple-digit hiring needs. For the past several years, HCPS has been in need of an average of 400-plus teachers to fill vacancies to begin each new school year. To provide context around the division's recruitment and retention efforts, it is helpful to share the backdrop against which this work is performed. To begin the 21-22 school year, there were in excess of 100 unfilled teaching vacancies in Henrico. At the same time, there were more than 1,000 vacancies or teacher vacancies across Virginia. While there are several reasons for this occurrence, the primary reason relates to the teacher pipeline. Traditionally, teachers enter the profession and the pipeline by completing a teacher preparation or prep program through a college or university. Nationally, however, enrollment in and completion of teacher prep programs has been on the decline for several years. As compared to the national level, Virginia has a higher number of individuals completing teacher prep programs, but has also experienced a steady decline since 2015. As we strive for diversity, one would expect teaching programs at Virginia historically Black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, to be prime recruiting ground. Out of the 40 Virginia colleges and universities that offer teacher prep programs, 4 are HBCUs. Program completion at these institutions has declined by 46% since the 2011-2013 biennium, thus reducing the number of potential available teaching candidates of color produced in the Commonwealth. Similar trends are reflected on the national level. Based upon the latest available data in 2018-19, out of 10,447 individuals enrolled in Virginia prep programs, there were 3,167 teacher program completers. As can be seen here, in preceding years, the number of program completers in our region, Region 1, would not be enough to fill all the annual Henrico vacancies, much less the Henrico vacancies plus those of the other school divisions within Region 1. As a result, it is imperative that HCPS is able to attract teachers that are new to the profession and those that are experienced in other divisions, as well as retain our own valued employees. How do we do this? First, we ensure that we have the infrastructure to support the work. Hiring a teacher is not a quick process. Each recommended candidate must be thoroughly vetted to ensure they meet the requirements to assume the responsibility for the education and well-being of our students. This includes application review, analysis of transcripts and licensure eligibility, reference checks, and criminal history checks. These are necessary, time-consuming, highly transactional processes that, when multiplied by an average of 400 teacher vacancies per year, leaves little room for strategic analysis to support recruitment and retention. Our school board recognized the infrastructure need, and in November, we were fortunate to hire Mrs. Kenya Jackson as a Division Talent Acquisition Ambassador. No one entity accomplishes this feat alone, however. In Henrico, a vast array of stakeholders work together to contribute to the recruitment and retention of a qualified, diverse workforce. Appreciation and credit are extended to all the entities who partner with us in this endeavor, from our school board and HCPS departments to external collaborators, such as Henrico County Government, the Henrico Education Foundation, and higher education institutions. The Talent Acquisition Ambassador's job is to ensure that all these collective efforts are synergized for optimum outcomes. Mrs. Jackson is charged with refocusing hiring and retention efforts through administering a formalized research-based recruitment and retention program, which incorporates intentional data collection, analysis, and strategy development. And now Mrs. Jackson will share strategies and initiatives under development and current undertakings that support recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce.
Good afternoon. My name is Kenya Jackson, and I am very honored to serve as Talent Acquisition Ambassador. In order to meet our recruitment and retention needs, the teacher pipeline must be strengthened. As we've just heard, many teacher prep programs are experiencing a decline in enrollment and program completers. An analysis of trend data indicates that more and more teachers are entering the profession in Henrico via an alternate route to licensure through obtaining a provisional teaching license. In order to be eligible for a provisional teaching license, a candidate must currently hold a bachelor's degree and meet minimum prerequisites outlined by the Virginia Department of Education. Once hired by a school division, a provisionally licensed teacher must then complete required educational coursework as well as specific assessments within 3 years in order to obtain full licensure. Currently, there are 266 provisionally licensed teachers in our ranks and more recent hires that will be processed as provisionally licensed. Accordingly, HCPS has instituted several strategies that directly impact the teacher pipeline to include teacher residency programs, program cost deferral opportunities, coursework supports, and internal grow your own initiatives. Let's begin with a review of our teacher residency programs. Currently, HCPS partners with Virginia Commonwealth University and the University of Richmond to cultivate teacher candidates through residency programs. Depending on the program, candidates either learn alongside district leaders for an entire year while earning a graduate degree or participate in a year-long paid teacher residency program for career switchers that blends required course content with the practice of teaching. Residency participants become HCPS new hires upon completion of their program. These residencies provide on-the-job training for teacher candidates while they complete required coursework. The coursework provides comprehensive preparation that is key to success in the classroom and also fosters retention. Research shows, however, that the amount of debt that teachers accrue during their training can be a barrier to entry into the profession. To assist provisionally licensed teachers defray costs associated with teacher preparation, the division pursues grant opportunities, partners with colleges and universities, and provides HCPS-based direct support. For example, HCPS recently sought and was awarded a grant opportunity through the Virginia Department of Education to support 47 provisionally licensed teachers of color. As a part of the grant, we have partnered with VCU's Minority Educator Recruitment, Retention, and Equity Center to provide tutorial assistance for some of the common assessments which are mandatory to fulfill licensure requirements. The grant also allows the assessment fee to be paid for the 47 teachers, which averages about $130 per assessment. Highlighting just one of several university partnerships, the Departments of Human Resources, Professional Learning and Equity, Diversity and Opportunity are in collaboration with Virginia State University to offer provisionally licensed teachers a reduced rate for summer courses necessary to earn a full renewable teaching license. Turning inwardly, HCPS also has plans to implement its very own program to offer courses needed by provisionally licensed teachers to obtain full licensure free of charge. Currently, teachers must independently seek out their required courses and enroll in universities and programs to fulfill these requirements. With this plan, courses will be taught by our very own HCPS educators and tailored to reflect Henrico County's teaching philosophies and vetted pedagogical practices. By offering the required courses in Henrico County, our teachers will be provided with the convenience of learning from the division for which they serve. In addition, this cohort of classes will create an opportunity for our teachers to network and collaborate with fellow educators. Also in the vein of HCPS direct support, this fall, the maximum annual tuition reimbursement amount will be increased from $500 to $1,000 for our employees, and HCPS will pay the $50 licensure renewal fee for teachers. With regard to our Grow Your Own Teacher Pipeline efforts, we currently have in place Teachers for Tomorrow courses within several of our schools and our very own Teacher Scholars Program. Teachers for Tomorrow is a 36-week, one-credit course selected for students that explores hands-on learning, teaching, and the educational system. Students can complete observations and a teaching internship. The Teacher Scholars Program is designed to encourage and identify high school seniors who are interested in pursuing teaching careers and provide a guaranteed job position with HCPS in one of the identified critical shortage areas. Additionally, Mr. Mac Baton has envisioned for the division a teacher apprenticeship program. The program would provide high school students the opportunity to pursue specialized coursework to prepare them to enter the field of education. Students would begin taking dual enrollment courses their junior year that would count toward obtaining their degree in education. Through utilizing a youth apprenticeship model, students would be directly involved in a work-based learning program. The program would incorporate the key elements of the standard apprenticeship model, including paid workplace experience in education and related instruction. This program is currently under development. Innovative initiatives such as these are critical to infuse the teacher pipeline. Simultaneously, we must also be innovative with regard to our retention efforts. The prevailing research indicates that among other factors, salary and compensation and workplace supports are major drivers in retaining a diverse workforce. With regard to salary and compensation, you will also receive a presentation on the division's career ladder proposal. This is a monumental initiative in which HCPS will lead the way in providing staff a compensation structure that allows advancement along the salary scale while personalizing professional learning. We also know that teachers are more likely to be recruited and retained when salaries and other compensation is competitive. Thanks to the Henrico County Board and Board of Supervisors, HCPS teacher salary scales are competitive with or slightly higher than most of our local school division counterparts, and all teachers received at least a 6.9% salary increase in the spring of 2021. This fall, teachers with 10 or more years of service in the division also received between a 2.4 or 9.8 longevity pay adjustment. These efforts by our governing bodies positively impact the ability to recruit and retain a diverse workforce. In the vein of additional compensation, HCPS seeks out grant opportunities such as the STEM grant for our teachers. This grant is designed to recruit and retain individuals to teach science, technology, engineering, or mathematics in Virginia middle and high schools experiencing difficulty in recruiting qualified teachers. Eligible teachers receive a $5,000 incentive award after successful completion of the first, second, and third years of teaching STEM at hard-to-staff schools, with a written commitment to return to the same school division for the following school year. Recognizing the challenges staffing shortages have presented this year, structures have been created to additionally compensate teachers for covering classes during their planning period. Once hired, teachers must feel supported in order to sustain their employment. Accordingly, aligning with research, the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Opportunity implemented staff affinity groups to assist with attracting diverse candidates, reducing turnover, and increasing employee morale. The purpose of the affinity groups revolves around the importance of inclusion and belonging as a way to connect staff with others in the professional community with a shared likeness. The groups promote for staff an established sense of self, confidence, and camaraderie. The groups also facilitate networking, mentorships, and other opportunities for professional and personal development. Another way to provide workplace supports is to assist with the workload. Teaching has always been a demanding profession. Currently, environmental and other factors contributing to staff shortages have compounded these demands, particularly in the substitute arena. To provide assistance, additional permanent substitute positions have been added to schools experiencing the highest unfilled substitute request rates. Central office staff have committed to working in schools to provide relief for unfilled sub-requests, and we have also been fortunate to have stakeholder partners, such as the University of Richmond and Henrico County government, volunteer to provide substitute coverage in our schools. The ability to fill these gaps for our teachers translates into a critical retention mechanism. A final critical component of teacher recruitment and retention is hiring management. The teaching profession is rapidly evolving. As a result, we must constantly assess our current policies, practices, and procedures to ensure that we are eliminating unnecessary barriers that may be influencing a teacher's attraction to or separation from Henrico County and/or the profession. It is our goal to strengthen hiring practices to ensure decisions are made as early as possible with the best candidate pool and based on the best information possible. To this end, several strategies have been developed around hiring management. In order to recruit effectively, you must know what you are recruiting for. Accordingly, collaboration between HR, the Department of Learning, the schools has occurred to streamline the timing of assessing student scheduling needs, which drive teacher needs. This earlier determination of student needs will allow earlier teacher-specific recruitment. Along the lines of needs identification, it is imperative to know a teacher's intent to remain with or separate from the division as soon as possible. To encourage expedited notification, the teacher intent form has been reinstated in an electronic format to allow teachers to quickly and easily relay this information to the Human Resources Department. A review of the teacher transfer process timelines is also being undertaken to ensure that we value current employees who wish to transfer within the division but do not incur opportunity losses with respect to solidifying external candidate hires. Additionally, the division job fair has been modified to provide a more convenient experience for candidates and administrators, and to provide administrators access to a greater number of qualified candidates. This week, we are hosting a division-wide virtual job fair. 384 eligible candidates have been invited to participate in a screening interview, with numerous leaders serving as virtual interviewers. This recruitment effort offers convenience and flexibility for candidates to participate. In the past, teacher job fairs were hosted on Saturdays. With this new week-long virtual format, candidates have multiple options throughout the day and evening, as well as Saturday, to select a time that is convenient for them, and HCPS leaders have the ability to tailor their schedules based upon their availability. We also have been able to engage with viable candidates from other states. Lastly, the HR department is revising the candidate hire workflow design to eliminate bottlenecks and increase the timeliness of offers to candidates. There are many efforts being undertaken in our division in support of recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce. While only highlighting a few, we hope this presentation has provided insight into this multifaceted endeavor. At this time, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. And while as a board, we know all of our divisions, all of our different departments have had extraordinary challenges in the last 18 months. We know you, Ms. Bolden, your department has overcome so many obstacles, and you have done such a tremendous job as a leader of that department, helping us find and fill gaps. I just want to take a moment that we all truly appreciate you and all that your department has done. So thank you so much. Now we'll get into any comments or questions from our board members. Ms. Atkins, I will begin with you.
Thank you, Chairwoman Shea. And thank you so much for the presentation. A ton of hard work and intentional efforts really took place over a short period of time. And I want to thank you also for your intentional efforts of hiring Black leaders. I'm a firm believer when it comes to hiring practices to look at the top and look at that diversity at the top. And in Varina, Sanson, and Highland Springs, you've done an extraordinary job. So we have 14 schools, I'd like to say maybe 16 now that we have HVA, and then grad, and then also AVR, because I have a significant amount of students that come from my district that participate in those schools. So thinking about that and thinking about the 14, 15, 16 schools, 10 of those have Black principals. And I think that's extraordinary. And that shift happened in a very short period of time. And I know that was intentional efforts. In addition to that, in looking at schools here, I think I have, and I tried to kind of type it out during the presentation, and we have 7 males, 9 females in principal positions. And it's important to me to look at the leadership in the buildings and really understand that we know that students want to see themselves, but leadership and teachers also see themselves as students. And it's a great partnership in building trusting relationships. It does help to understand culture. So that's just a side note that I want to thank you for, that I want you to know that I noticed it. I know that it will continue, and it's going to filter down into teachers because you have folks at the table to help bring and with a lens to look for different levels of culture, different types of diversity. I do have a fair amount of questions, and so I'm going to try to cipher through those questions so that I can yield the floor to my colleagues who may also have questions as well. The first question that I'll start with is, during that interview process, can you help me understand how HR demonstrates the value of Black and Hispanic educators?
And I'll start, and you can shore me up.
Okay.
So from a very technical perspective, we always want to ensure that our interview panels are balanced with respect to diversity. And we also infuse within our interview questions that speak to diversity so that the candidate knows our expectations, and we can hear from the candidate their perspectives and what they would bring.
Yes, I would like to reiterate, it is very important that there is a diverse applicant and panel when selecting your interview panel. It's also important to ensure and to make sure that our administrators are aware what are we looking for? What specifically are we looking for to fill? To make sure that the candidate represents the skill sets and not to include any type of interviewer biases that may be included in an interview. As Mrs. Bolden indicated, we infuse diversity and cultural related questions into our interview questions. For example, for our virtual job fair, every candidate, all 384 candidates were asked a question related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. As an educator, how would you promote diversity, equity, and inclusion if you were selected as a teacher here in Henrico County? So while our applicant pools may not always be as diverse as we would like them to be, at least we are assessing a candidate's intentions and philosophies as it relates to this topic.
Thank you for that response. That addresses the candidate, in the process of understanding the intentions of the candidate, also understanding a little bit personality, a little bit of culture. I'm curious as to on the opposite end, how do we on the opposite end, let's use the interview process, and that's what you were speaking to, how does the interviewer translate our value of Black educators and Hispanic educators to the candidate? Does that make sense?
Sure.
So that when you're asking the questions of that particular candidate, they understand how much we value diversity.
Yes.
So how do we get that message across to the candidate so that when they're responding, they are responding with an understanding of how much weight we place on diversity? Does that make sense?
Yes, I think as candidates are even reviewing our websites and reviewing the school's websites, there is a real focus and intention of diversity. How we brand Henrico County speaks to our level of commitment of how we celebrate diversity amongst our division. When we look amongst our leaders across our school board, and as you mentioned, we're trying to have an intentional effort to make sure that our leaders represent diversity. So when there are decisions to be made, our teachers and all of our employees understand that there is a variety of perspectives and opinions and, just beliefs so that we can incorporate those to trickle into our classrooms and into our schools. And eventually our students will, see that same effort. But I do believe that we celebrate diversity here in Henrico, and it's very much translated in all of our flyers. We are very intentional when we go to job fairs to make sure that our job fairs reflect diversity so that, there is a variety of males and females, Black and our white counterparts that are always with us to ensure that our candidates understand that this is something that we promote.
And we promote that very well through our strategic plan. And another strategy we use is for the schools to help us tell their story. Mm-hmm. What does your student population look like? What are the needs of your students? So that helps the candidate have a larger purview of what the expectations and what the needs are at each individual location.
I appreciate your responses because referrals are key in building the trusting relationships within the schools. And then if we have those trusting relationships, those individuals can share the stories with HR, with the recruiters, so that when they're in that interview process, you can share those stories and engage in a more courageous, in-depth conversation about whether it's race or cultures, et cetera, because we do an incredible job of trying to promote diversity. I think in our recruitment practices, I'll be honest, I think we have some ways to go. We're headed there, absolutely. And at the top of my statement was, I see it. I see it in my district, especially if I'm able to give you data points around it. It solidifies it. The other question I have is, if you could articulate to me what strategies we use to describe the state of needs for Black and Hispanic students. So when you're in that interview process or recruitment process, how do you describe that to the candidate?
And again, we rely on our principals and other specialists and other representatives of Henrico to help us tell the story. So who can best tell the story of what the needs are than a principal for his or her school? And so one strategy, again, is we rely very heavily on the schools to help us tell their story.
Do you have the principals in the interviews with you, or what does that look like?
Not every single interview.
So for instance, for our virtual job fair, our interviewers were school administrators, assistant principals, curriculum specialists. Principals are typically, and administrators are typically the primary people in the interviews. And it would include department chairs and other teachers or people that would be relevant to making a solid selection for that school. And so as we, as HR specialists and the HR team are out promoting, it is important that we are attending the principals' meetings, that we are having those collaborative conversations, we're understanding what the needs are for the schools, so that when we are vetting and screening candidates to send to the schools, we have a strong understanding of what they would like to see at their schools.
And so I was going to say, and not every single interview, because as Kenya alluded to, many, many people recruit and interview for us and with us. So it's imperative that all of us have information about what the story is so that we can tell it.
And I think that's why it's so important to me that we start with leadership, because principals are a part of that interview process. They understand their schools, and when they're allowed to be a part of the process, they can be very selective in making sure that it's the right fit. I'll have 2 more questions and then I'll yield the floor, guys. So thank you for your patience. Let me get to. So one of the most common places for bias to sort of peek its ugly head is the criteria that's used to assess candidates. I was pleased to hear, though, some of the ways that you are going to review some of that criteria, as well as some changes that were mentioned during your presentation. I would also like to learn, and you don't have to do this in this moment unless you would like to, I would like to see the criteria used in evaluating a Black or Hispanic candidate. That's a loaded question. I don't expect for you to answer that in this moment. I would actually probably not to try, but I would like to see what that actually looks like at a later date, whether it's an email or a conversation. And then the last question is, do we offer a relocation stipend?
Do you want to take that one?
Not at this time. We do not offer relocation stipends. We have in the past. They did not yield the results that we were hoping for. We're always, exploring opportunities, but we at this time do not offer relocation stipends. One of the issues is that there's a very limited applicant pool, and our teachers are really in the driver's seat, especially if they're endorsed and they're strong, they're proficient. They're really in the driver's seat because all divisions are vetting the same candidate pool. And so it's important when we look at our efforts, we're looking very much so on recruitment, but more importantly, we're looking at retention. Once they're here, how do we keep them to stay? How do we keep them invested in the education profession? And most importantly, keeping them in Henrico County so that we can continue with that strong relationship and partnership.
I agree. Retention is key. However, if the effort is to increase the amount of Black and Hispanic, how do you get there?
Well,
so I think, when I'm thinking about some of the conversations that I've had, the reason I asked that question is because that came up. I would like to see an analysis of if you go back and look at some of the data points in history of when we offered relocation. I'd like to see the number of Black and Hispanic individuals, the pool that you had, and whether there was an increase. Now, they may not have been higher, but I'm interested in seeing if there was an increase, because understanding that in order to grow that particular demographic, relocation seems to be a bit of a topic, at least in the conversations that I've had. So I hear you, that it didn't yield the results. I do think a lot has changed since then. And, you know, one of my goals certainly is to try to help Henrico County become even more diverse, particularly in my district. And one opportunity, again, I'd like for you to explore is looking at that relocation stipend and looking outside, especially if you're looking at historically Black colleges and universities. I think that's something that you may want to explore, again, to expand that pool of Black and Hispanic teachers. So colleagues, thank you so much for your patience with my ton of questions. I didn't ask them all, but I know that this is not the time to do that. So Chairwoman Shea, and thank you ladies so much for your responses.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Atkins. Reverend Cooper?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So first and foremost, Ms. Bolden, I want to just kind of echo the sentiments of our chair, but I just want to kind of add a little bit to it myself. I want to thank you first and foremost and our HR department for creatively assessing and addressing the challenges that we face in recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce that reflects our student demographic, even in light of the competitive marketplace that we're in. So it's imperative, it's important that we acknowledge that. I am so happy to hear that we are, in essence, perpetually reviewing our policies, practices, and procedures to ensure that we are progressing and not regressing in our intentional efforts in recruiting and rewarding and retaining that diverse workforce. And I'm sure that in that process of evaluating our practices, policies, and procedures, that we're making sure that we are objective in light of how we interview, how we hire our potential employees. Also, I want to just say how appreciative I am of our intentional workplace supports, which are another way that we want to be the employer of choice for teaching professionals. So thank you for sharing that. The fact that we have a talent acquisition ambassador, I believe, says that this board and our superintendent and our HR department takes this work very seriously. I just think that the fact that Ms. Jackson is here in that role that she has says that speaks volumes to our intentional efforts to do that. I'm pleased also to see a higher retention rate from 18-19, as well as a lower turnover rate. So I think that's kudos to us. As far as the decline in National Teacher Program enrollment and completion, for reference, Virginia's public colleges enrollment since 2017 to 2021 has declined by 7%. And if we drill down even more macro to our HBCUs, we see the number of enrollment plus completion of the general programs, not just teaching, has been exacerbated as well, given that right now students are choosing some to go into the workforce at greater numbers than also going to college. So I think that we have to acknowledge that and speak to that. I'm hopeful that in the coming year and years, we'll see the success of Ms. Jackson's efforts as well as our entire HR department. Quick question, the teacher residency program, have we had any discussion as far as expansion to Virginia Union and Virginia State? I know that we have URVC, or just tell me what's the mindset of that with, you know, those two schools not inclusive of Virginia State and Virginia Union?
Well, the residency programs, as you mentioned, are currently with VCU and U of R. Virginia State is a very collaborative partner with HCPS. In fact, as referenced in the presentation, we are hoping to allow Virginia State to have reduced courses so that 100 seats will be available to our provisionally licensed candidates at a reduced rate so that they can obtain full licensure. So while the residencies, and the partnerships may not look the same, the connections for those partnerships related to those universities are definitely available, as well as Virginia Union. We are certainly in talks with Virginia Union. Dr. Monica Manns and I sit on their advisory board, and they are very in tune and would like to be supportive of how we can increase the applicant pipeline. As you referenced, the teacher prep programs are declining across all universities, but what is increasing is our number of provisionally licensed teachers. And I'm very happy to say that of our provisionally licensed teachers, about 50% of them are teachers of color. And so universities understand that we have to work collaboratively for this work and in supporting our provisionally licensed teachers, because until we can increase those teacher prep programs and increase the completion rate of the teacher prep programs, we really need to focus on how to support and encourage and really incentivize teachers to pursue that provisional licensure route.
No, I appreciate you giving a more detailed, descriptive answer in that, yes, VCU and University of Richmond have this program, but Virginia State, Virginia Union, our efforts are this. And I think that speaks volumes. I mean, Ms. Bolden's a Hampton graduate. You should go on down to Hampton and bring that a part of it too. No, but I say that I'm very serious because I think, Ms. Bolden, you and I had a conversation where you spoke about, our efforts to try to make students switch from other majors to education. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, and probably Kenya can speak a little bit better because she's well versed on that side of the house with licensure and what have you. But sometimes, we often go to career fairs, not only for educators, but business and industry, because folks have degrees in other areas that for which we could obtain a provisional for them. And lots of times they have not even thought about teaching. And so we try to be very persuasive and try to figure out what motivates them, but to attract other folks to the profession outside of those who intentionally pursued a teaching track.
No, and because I've been drilling you for years about this topic, and you always shoot at me, the creative ways in which you and your staff are approaching this problem, not from a defeated perspective, but one in which we can make the headway. So thank you for just alluding to that. And the last statement I just want to make, hopefully the efforts with our intentional package as far as benefits and salary will help us to kind of create a combustible combination of, what we offer and how we treat our staff, in which we can get the candidates and keep them and reward them. So thank you both for your effort. Madam Chairwoman, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Reverend Cooper. Ms. Agmar?
Thank you. It's such a wealth of information, first of all. We're probably all going to hit on something different. So I'd like to get, when we have time or when Mac is available to do it. Sorry, Mac, to put you on the spot. But the apprentice program, I love that idea, and growing our own. Mm-hmm. We've been doing this for a while with other efforts, but adding to that, I just think is wonderful. I know that years and years ago, we had a SOTA program where the high school kids could go into the elementary school and help them. They get an idea of what it's like when they're in high school to be teachers. I don't even, do we still do that? I'm just curious, because that could be on this list.
The Virginia Teachers for Tomorrow program offers a similar experience.
Right, and I just love the idea of introducing our high school students, middle school too, to the idea of become teachers one day, but growing our own, I think, is so important, because it is basically facing this head on, because you're right, we are competing with everyone to get our teachers. And if we're going to continue to attract qualified teachers who can meet our standards, do what we need them to do, handle the workload, handle all that we do ask our teachers to do, we have to present them with a quality work experience. Because at the end of the day, they need to be able to go home and go, I'm glad I did what I did today. And they need to feel good about the work that they're doing, but the work we're asking them to do. But you said two things that really resonated with me, that this is innovative and that we are leading the way, which I really like, that we are taking this proactive approach. We can't sit back because then the teachers will go elsewhere. We have to create a place where they want to come. So in that vein, though, I like that we're looking at the career ladders. We're going to hear about that in a few minutes. That certainly with our recent pay raises and looking at compression, we do have competitive salaries. But I like the idea that we're giving teachers a way to reward innovation and self-improvement. I mean, because I remember when I was in the classroom, you felt like there was nowhere to go. You could become an administrator was about your only option. So self-improvement, wanting to hone your craft, so to speak, and being able to be rewarded for that, I think is not a lot of people doing that. And that's almost like the corporate world, which is, I think, one of the issues that education has always faced, is that in the corporate world, you're rewarded for improvement and we don't do that for our teachers. So I'm really glad to see it. So thank you very much. That's all for me.
Thank you, Ms. Ogburn. Ms. Kinsella?
Yes, I couldn't be happier to see Ms. Jackson as well as you, Ms. Bolden, but newly hired back to Henrico, Ms. Jackson. And you've certainly been a valuable addition to the team, and we appreciate you and just how you've just jumped right in, and appreciate this presentation. So much of the conversation, no one has yet discussed the burnout. Significant burnout, unparalleled. I don't know the same words we've been using, but burnout. And I know as we and others around the country try to resolve the staffing shortages, I'm just so worried about the future of education, specifically fall 2022 and beyond. Fewer folks are choosing education. Other businesses are actually hiring our educators away because they realize how wonderful educators are as employees. So that's troubling. I really appreciate the fact that you've changed. I think my colleagues have spoken to it. You've changed our strategy. One of the most valuable slides I saw when we first came on the board, I think Mrs. Shea and I went to Teachers for Tomorrow, and it was this red stop sign up on a slide. And it was like, because it's always done that way. And that's what they were teaching the students, that, always question that. So I applaud you, and that you are changing the way. Recruit, retain, and reward does not look the same. To that vein, you mentioned that we had done a survey, that you had brought it back. How many of our employees are unsure about returning, and how many are retiring? When will we have that data?
So we have that data now. 68% of our teachers completed that survey. And so this is really a snapshot in time for us to assess our teachers. Some of them already know that they're relocating, they're planning to retire. And this really prompted our teachers to be able to give us that data so that we can start strategizing with staffing needs. But we did have about a 68% return rate. And of that, 9.7% indicated that they were unsure of their plans at this time. 87% indicated that they plan to return. A little over 1% indicated that they were planning to resign and have submitted their resignations. And a little more than 1% indicated that they were retiring and notified us.
Okay. And we didn't ask for why, or?
We did.
Or is that as far as we went, just retire, resign, or did you find out the why?
The why in terms of resignations, we did find out the why. And the why for those, the top reasons were, at this time, they were unsure of their career plans. Another top reason was physical and mental health, relocation, family obligations, and accepted a position outside of education.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that information. Let's see. When I look at, or when I think about work, I think about being fulfilled. Are there growth opportunities? And career ladder is coming. Very excited about that. I think about management. I know our superintendent, division leadership, and the school board are committed. Do they have interesting work to do? You know, with our students, they do. Have we asked our folks, our candidates, what they're looking for? Because there are folks that we're trying to recruit, and where you are in life may look a little bit different. You know, some folks are looking for the culture. Do we market our location? Henrico is a great place to live, work, play, and learn. The flexibility teachers may have, I mean, or anyone employed by us. Are we asking those questions of what the candidates are looking for? I know we know what we're looking for, but are we asking it of them?
Yes, we absolutely ask that of our candidates because, as you mentioned, we recognize that, eligible candidates have, options and opportunities to look within our division and look outside of our division and even look outside of education. And so we try to be extremely intentional to ensure that we are hearing what the candidate is looking for. Amongst our wonderful division, there's so much diversity, so many differences between schools, between levels, between content areas. Many of our candidates have multiple endorsement areas. And so we try to be as intentional as possible to ensure a good fit for the candidate and the school so that when they do enter into that new position, they're happy and they want to stay, which will only support the school.
Well, and as my colleagues have already said, and I'm certain we all support, we are an increasingly diverse division and community. So it goes without saying, we appreciate you recruiting a workforce that looks like the community in which we live, work, play, and learn. So thank you there. Are we just thinking outside, just different things that make Henrico different as an employer? Are we using employee testimonials? I know Ms. Atkins mentioned a relocation package, but I'm more interested in referral bonuses for our current employees. I know that during our bus driver shortages, we've paid bonuses to our bus drivers for referrals. I think we need some referral bonuses for our educators.
I smile because that's one of the things Mrs. Jackson has asked for as well.
Yes, I feel like, I just have to say, I thank our teachers tremendously for the hard work that they do. And these past 2 years have been extremely unprecedented. And we are very, very thankful for all of the work. And they are our biggest recruiters. When they are happy in their division, they will share with their friends and their colleagues from other divisions, or perhaps they're the eyes and ears as well to help us find the candidates. So yes, Mrs. Bolden and I have been in conversation about that.
I'm very excited to hear about that. And then recently our Board of Supervisor counterparts gave a real estate tax credit. Are we looking at anything, some of the largest expenditures? I was glad to hear that we're paying fees for provisional licensures and trying to help the financial side of an education. But are we talking other creative ideas, for example, housing, any kind of other support from living in Henrico County? Are you guys speaking to HR on the government side, or Dr. Cashwell? Are there any conversations to where maybe we can support our employees in a different way in Henrico County?
Yes, I'll answer at a high level, and if you have more details, please add. But, absolutely, when you think about how can we do things differently, lots of conversations taking place about that, and thinking about, the question asked about relocation bonuses. If it isn't that, how do we create a situation that attracts individuals who may have to make a move to want to join the area, not just because of the quality of life, but what makes sense financially. So we can be a competitive pay leader, and we are, but things like, affordable housing, getting getting set up with checking accounts and banking, thinking about Henrico Federal Credit Union, discounts maybe related to any utility setup fees and those kinds of things. You mentioned personal property tax. I think there's a lot we can explore, particularly with our general government counterparts, with some partners like the Henrico Federal Credit Union, and making an attractive proposition for individuals who may relocate to, or just be starting out, graduating from college with their first place, their first job, those kinds of things. How can we just support that endeavor? So I think there are lots of conversations about what could be. And if I've missed something, please feel free to add to it.
No. Okay, I would just like to encourage those conversations. Let them continue as a way in Henrico County we can continue to set ourselves apart from other localities, especially since employees, because we are so close to other localities, sometimes they leave us for another locality, or another locality's employees come to us, but just other ways we can set ourselves aside. Love the apprenticeship program. I am just not surprised Mr. Baton has created it. When do we expect it to begin? And how soon would we benefit from it?
It's definitely in the early stages. And so I had the pleasure and honor of attending some meetings early on with MAC and partners at the university level. So this will take cooperation not only at the community college level, but with our four-year colleges, in creating a pathway similar to our ACAs, where students would be, while they're enrolled in school, earning an associate's degree and then finishing up those credentials at a four-year institution. So it's definitely something that's in the works, but not formalized yet, and we'll share more once it is.
Okay, thank you. And then in our additional compensation, the grant opportunities, hearing from other teachers over the years when their grant compensation expired, is there any discussion of replacement of those funds? Because when you're talking $5,000, teachers miss that. If the answer is it's on the list, that's a great answer, but just to put it out there that when those grants expire, oftentimes teachers miss that $5,000.
Certainly, and we can explore that.
Okay, and then heard a lot about substitutes and the lack thereof. So just, I guess that's probably more budget related, but it is recruit, retain, reward, because the fewer substitutes we have, the greater the workload on everyone else in the building. And then I'm just going to close by kind of giving it to Mrs. Shea. She had a great job share idea that she brought up. Marcy, I don't even know, in the past year or two, but you go ahead and talk about that. And thank you again for all your work, really.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kinsella. Redirect to Ms. Ogburn.
Absolutely, thank you. Just real quick, I wanted to follow up on something Mrs. Kinsella said, the why that people are leaving. I would love to get more information on that. Basically, what can we do to solve some of the whys? Because I've had some teachers over the years just say discipline is an issue, that they just get to the point where they just can't deal with the behavior problems anymore, for example, or there's, too much on their plate, whatever it is. I would really love to have some way that we can look at the whys, and maybe y'all could share that with us, because if there's something we can do about those, I think that would be very targeted work. I'm assuming y'all look at it and you know all the whys and you've shared some of those with us, but I just think that would be really good information for us to have.
Not only can we follow up related to Henrico's specific information, but we can also share with the board, something we're mindful of. There's a pretty significant body of research related to the teaching profession in general, and those questions. And I think some of them wouldn't be specific to the district, but things related to the profession in general, and the changing nature of the responsibilities that come along with the teaching profession. As I said, that body of research and work is evolving, and I think it's something we also stay tuned to. And so I think we can look at sharing both, and where are there areas where we see our ability to make an impact, and then are there things beyond that that we should just be mindful of, even if they're outside of our control. There are additional things we can do to sort of soften the impact of some of the challenges that come with the role.
Well, and like one of my colleagues said, is just because it's always been done a certain way, maybe we're the ones who change it. And so some of those whys, giving that feedback to us, I think would be great. But also, if you could at some point give us some information, this is just like sharing an email, whatever. How many of our employees that are leaving are going into the prep program and how many are opting out? I'm curious if our prep program is still as an attractive benefit that as we think it is, and I'm just a little feedback on that would be great.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that. And I would say, just sort of nodding back to the body of work and research related to factors that retain individuals in the teaching profession. And that has everything to do with the presentation you're about to see next. And that is the opportunity to advance and grow professionally and receive compensation. And I think you mentioned just, your own personal perspective as an educator, thinking of what does it look like to grow professionally, advance, to find fulfillment in that area that doesn't necessarily mean taking an administrative route. And so I think you'll see that the latter and some plans we have moving forward to really personalize the experience for employees and meet their individual needs is one way of us doing things really differently to get to one of those core reasons we see people indicating a lack of satisfaction with the profession or eventually their intent to leave.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for this presentation. More than a couple of thoughts for me. But when we look at recruiting, I loved so many things that y'all had to say, particularly around the work-based learning opportunity being grown and our teachers for tomorrow. I think it's so important to get students who are interested in teaching in the classroom early. And I think that's a big gap in our teacher preparation programs at the post-secondary level is often students don't get into the classroom until their very last semester, their very last 2 semesters when they've already committed. And there's no better way to know if your passion is being in the classroom than being in the classroom. And so these opportunities for our students to get into the classrooms early, I think is just so critical in terms of growing teachers that are truly passionate about the work. And so I'm excited to see some expansion there. And our Teacher Scholars program is incredible. One of our first-year teachers at one of my schools is a product of that. And he is maybe the most dynamic first-year teacher I have ever seen. He invites me in regularly to co-teach with him, which is just like, so amazing. I've learned so much good math pedagogy from him and being with our students. And, to see a first-year teacher with that kind of confidence and that kind of just dynamic, in Henrico, we grow the best, so let's keep them. And I think your questions and your probing into what are the barriers of entry for candidates into the field of education, I think that's spot on because this is not just a Henrico problem. This is a national problem. And like you said, we're fighting for the same finite small group of passionately qualified candidates. And so we want to grow that pool, not just for us, but for everyone. And so looking at what are those barriers, how can we use our voices as a division, both working with post-secondary and perhaps, legislation and changing the larger conversation, how can we remove those barriers? I think is going to be essential to the future of education, as Ms. Kinsella put it out, not just for fall 2022, but as we go forward, for the long haul, on who's going to be in the classroom to teach our students. It's of critical importance. And so I appreciate y'all asking that question. When we look at retaining our teachers, I think the majority of teachers, not just in Henrico, but nationally, while salary can be a challenge, and our Board of Supervisors really has gone above and beyond trying to keep us competitive in the career ladders and that sort of thing, and as well as I'm hoping that these state budget supports are going to come through. And so, we're doing all we can in terms of salary. It's really the quality of life that causes most educators to leave the field. It's that burnout. It's that work-life balance. And so I appreciated seeing the supports that were put in place in the building. I think along with that goes being really intentional about vetting initiatives, instructional initiatives that come through, which I know Dr. Hughes and Dr. Cashwell and their team, they've been really trying to be intentional about vetting and developing before the rollout, so it's not initiative after initiative. But that makes a difference for teachers, right? That makes a difference in terms of retaining. Also, real careful consideration about responsibilities beyond instruction. And I think while subs have been a challenge, to say the least, this year, the piece about compensating teachers for when they have to, I think that goes a long way, for us to say this wasn't our intention for you to lose your planning period, but we respect the fact that you have a planning period and we're going to compensate you for losing that. I think that goes a long way. Our goal is for everyone to have a planning period every day, right? But when we can't, acknowledging that, right, and owning that, I think is so important. And then I think a third level that's really been highlighted in the last 12 to 18 months is respect. And I think that has been so hard for our educators. And I will say at every opportunity I get to, our educators are skilled professionals, period. And that is not said enough. I think the community rhetoric is really hard for all of our educational professionals right now. I've heard from a lot of our secondary teachers how that has overflowed into student attitudes inside the building, and for them, that is the straw that's breaking the camel's back, right? All the stuff they can't control outside the classroom, they're used to closing their door and engaging and having dynamic classes with their students, and when they lose that piece, they're losing their passion and they're losing their love for what they do. And so I think this respect piece, and then along with some of the state initiatives that just do not bolster up the fact that our educators are professionals, I think all of that coming together right now is just so hard. And I don't know what the answer, particularly to that last piece, is, but I think we have to acknowledge it, right? I think we have to acknowledge that, and as much as we can with our compensation and our rhetoric with inside of Henrico, build up our teachers and say, you are appreciated and you are a professional and you are the boots on the ground and the hands of our school division and you are doing the work every day. I don't know. I can't say that enough. So, a couple questions around, we talked about affinity groups. You mentioned in terms of being really rooted in the spirit of inclusion and belonging. I know some constituents in my district have brought questions up about that in the last year. And so for the sake of clarity, so that everyone understands what this is, I just have a couple of questions. First of all, is it required for staff to participate in affinity groups?
No, it is not.
No. Okay, so for those who couldn't hear Ms. Bolden, it is not required.
It is not required.
Not required to participate in affinity groups. Are affinity groups exclusively available to staff members of a certain race or religion?
No, anyone who is interested may participate in an affinity group.
Okay, so for those of you who couldn't hear, anyone may participate in an affinity group. And so I just wanted just provide our constituents some clarity around that. I think there's been a lot of confusion about what that specifically means. And so I think for the broader audience to understand that they are voluntary and that anyone can participate in any of the affinity groups is important to understand. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much. And then since Ms. Kinsella teed me up so nicely, I appreciate that. I'll just put a plug in for my passion for job sharing. I think that so often that first bubble of burnout that hits our young teachers, often it aligns with when they're growing their family. And so if it is an option, often teachers, and especially those 150% all-in teachers, right? You know what I'm talking about. They often opt to stay home with their family, but they're still passionate about students and education. We talked about that work-life balance. They just can't make those two meet. And I'll wholeheartedly admit I was one of those people, which is kind of where my passion from this comes from. And I think if we can look into opportunities to job share, particularly, it's a little bit challenging at the elementary to kind of envision what that would look like, but particularly at the secondary level where schedules could be easily kind of sliced, not easily, but more easily sliced and diced. I think we could retain a lot of those teachers. Particularly, one of my high schools just got this extraordinary mid-year hire for a part-time position. And it's because it was a part-time position that she was able to, we had lost her a couple years ago and it ended up to be a part-time position, so she picked it up. And I mean, the difference in the students, and they just totally thriving, extraordinary. And so I think if we could, I know the infrastructure there is tricky to set up, but if we could explore that, I think not only would we retain those extraordinary educators for while they're part-time, but I think then we also stand the chance of them growing back to full-time, after a season of life. And so we just, we got to think outside the box, but, not only was that my personal experience, I've seen it firsthand now in some of my schools, being able to pull teachers recently back as part-time that we wouldn't have gotten back full-time, and just the difference I made. So thank you for teaming me up. Thank you for listening to my crazy ideas. And I'll just close in saying, I was one of those hires at one of those Henrico job fairs where everybody goes, and I remember coming home for the weekend to stay with my mama, which she loved. And to the point of trying to recruit out of state, I think thinking outside the box and have it virtually, what a great idea. Way to expand our pool for people who might not already have ties to Henrico, but are looking for a great place to live, work, play, and learn. And so kudos to you all. So that is all for me. Thank you so much.
Chairwoman Shea, I did have one more comment, if that's all right. One other thought that I had as we're looking into this particular topic is getting some level of a legislative update. I know there are a few bills that will impact things like recruitment, pay, licensure. I think it might be wise to get a legislative update right now. I know crossover, what's the date? I believe crossover happened on the 15th. So that session should be ending, or we will end it, I would say probably by March 14th or 15th. So if possible, I think it would be wise to get some level of an update on what has passed that may impact these ladies' efforts in Henrico County as a whole.
Yep, we'll keep you posted as that unfolds.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you again to our presenters, Francine Bolden and Kenya Jackson, for that very comprehensive presentation. And I think they noted at the end, this doesn't represent all of their efforts, just a fraction. So we could spend a week on this topic. Their passion, enthusiasm, and dedication to this is really unparalleled. All right, the highly anticipated Career Ladder presentation is next. And of course, the work related to the Career Ladder initiative crosses across many departments and areas from HR to, certainly John's been involved from a financial perspective, and then our professional learning and leadership team as well. So many hands have made fingerprints on this incredible program, but we're going to hear from Dr. Leslie Hughes and Mrs. Tracy Weston. Our Director of Learning and Leadership is going to unveil sort of a high-level look at the Career Ladder and what it means and why this is an important part of our recruit and retain initiative. So I'm going to turn it over to them. Oh, it's a very finicky
We're here, we've got it.
Computer today.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cashwell. Good afternoon, Chair Shea, members of the board, and Dr. Cashwell. As Dr. Cashwell stated, my name is Leslie Hughes, and I'm the Chief Learning Officer. And with me this afternoon is Tracy Weston, Director of Professional Learning and Leadership. Together, we will present the board with an update of the HCPS Career Ladder, which will begin during the 2022-2023 school year. As some board members may recall, plans began on the Career Ladder well over 2 years ago. While the pandemic slowed our work just a bit, we are now ready to climb the ladder to ensure further opportunities exist to recruit, retain, and reward staff. While Dr. Weston and I represent the Division of Learning, as Dr. Cashwell said, plans for the Career Ladder have been a multi-division effort. Staff in the Division of Finance, as well as Human Resources, have also partnered in our work. I would like to take a moment to ask them to stand and be recognized at this time. At the end of the presentation, staff from all three divisions will be available to answer questions. It is important to note that the work of the career ladder is in direct alignment with one of the strategic goals of Destination 2025, which states that HCPS will recruit, retain, and reward educators who nurture the whole child. Before climbing the ladder, let's take a moment to discuss what a career ladder is and why it is important to develop a common understanding of this approach. A career ladder is a method by which an employee can progress and develop within an organization and is a personalized approach to professional learning and career pathways. It also provides employees with an ongoing mechanism to enhance their skills and knowledge. So why is a career ladder important? We know HCPS, like our counterparts in the region and nation, are experiencing a staff shortage. And that in addition to taking steps to ease that shortage, we must continue to strive towards recruitment and retention efforts, many of which you heard in today's earlier presentation. A career ladder allows HCPS to take recruitment and retention one step further. Once implemented, HCPS will lead the region in providing innovative compensation opportunities to invest in our employees. Based on research, increased career satisfaction, decreased levels of attrition, and more engagement in professional learning are all benefits of a career ladder. So let's take a moment to look at the timeline for teacher classification structure. Prior to 2019, the HCPS teacher compensation structure consisted of 2 pay grades, grade 28 for teachers holding a bachelor's degree, and grade 29 for teachers holding a master's degree. Before 2019, obtainment of a master's degree provided the only option for teachers to advance to a higher salary grade. Beginning in 2019-2020, a 3rd pay grade was added to the compensation structure, which is grade 30. This grade was added to acknowledge National Board Certified Teachers, or NBCT status. In April of 2021, teacher pay grades were reclassified by 1 grade each to reflect local market conditions. This action moved the pay grades on the aforementioned slide from the range of 28 to 30 to 29 to 31. Currently, grade 29 represents teachers holding a bachelor's degree, which is approximately 38% of the HCPS teacher population. Grade 30 represents teachers holding a bachelor's degree plus NBCT status, or teachers who hold a master's degree. 59% of the HCPS teacher population fall into this category. Grade 31 represents teachers who hold a master's degree plus NBCT status, and roughly 1% of our teachers fall in that category. The beauty of the 2022-2023 teacher classification structure through the lens of the career ladder is that it allows for an additional pathway to a higher pay grade that does not require teachers to complete a degree program. For example, a teacher on a 29 with a bachelor's degree could achieve a grade 31 plus 2 steps through successful completion of a specially designed professional learning pathways, which will be outlined later in the presentation. It is important to note that while most of the reference of the career ladder thus far has been on teachers, other eligible staff will be included for the 22-23 school year. This slide shows a breakdown of staff who are classified as teachers on the left, and those who fall under other eligible staff on the right side of the screen. Plans to expand the opportunity to staff outside of the 2 categories will be shared at a later date. Another important feature of the career ladder is that it recognizes other advanced degrees and certifications, such as doctoral degrees, trade certification, and degrees of highest standing for professionals, such as BCBAs, nurses, occupational therapists, physical therapists, school psychologists, school social workers, speech language pathologists, and audiologists. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to Dr. Weston, who will highlight the aspects of the professional learning available in the Career Ladder.
Through the Career Ladder, teachers will see an expansion of HCPSU, Henrico's online site for personalized professional learning. For the past...
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I want to go.
Just go to next. Hit next. I can do it for you real quick.
Oh, there you go.
Here, and then you're going to use this one. Okay. For the past 2 years, HCPSU has been the one-stop source for teachers to explore both required and optional learning opportunities. We know that teaching quality and school leadership are important factors in raising student achievement. For teachers and leaders to be as effective as possible, they must continually expand their knowledge and skills to implement the best educational practices for all students. This is accomplished by meaningful and robust professional learning. The expansion of HCPSU provides a broader menu of professional learning options, both synchronous and asynchronous, that support and promote the continuous growth of our teachers and staff. Also new to HCPSU is the introduction of micro-credentials, a suite of professional learning activities that serve as entry points for enrolling in a specialization. Micro-credentials are competency-based courses or experiences that provide 30 or more hours of targeted learning on a specific topic or learning series. Recognized HCPS micro-credentials are staff-created, facilitated, and provide flexible learning options. In addition, micro-credentials created by the Virginia Department of Education and by education organizations that meet HCPS criteria may also be approved for entry into a specialization. Specializations represent a venue for teachers to participate in adult learning tailored to their work at Henrico as a way to grow professionally while earning additional compensation and professional recognition. Specializations build on a blended learning cohort model with a combination of in-person and virtual meetings that occur outside of contractual hours, similar to a master's class, and include practical application of new knowledge and skills. Aligned with the principles of adult learning, teachers select their area of interest and through job-embedded coursework are immediately able to transfer knowledge learned to practice in their classrooms. Teachers receive 1 pay grade increase for each successfully completed specialization up to and including pay grade 31. They may also receive a 2-step increase if they are already on grade 31 for completing a specialization or an advanced degree. Ultimately, the Career Ladder provides a myriad of opportunities to include an expanded professional learning menu for teachers to explore, time and compensation for teachers to lend their expertise to the development of micro-credentials and specializations, compensation for teachers who serve as adjunct faculty for HCPSU with a stipend for each semester of teaching, teacher leadership positions with reduced class loads where teachers, after completing at least 1 specialization, can expand their professional expertise to support instructional practices across their school. Leadership no longer has to be a pathway out of the classroom. The Career Ladder ensures that teachers have an opportunity to grow professionally through newly developed pathways, encouraging them to lead from the classroom, working with both students and adult learners. The fiscal year 2023 recommended budget includes $3.1 million in Career Ladder funding for professional learning, micro-credentialing, and specializations, teacher support and provisionally licensed cohorts, salary adjustments for advanced professional credentials, and reimbursements for tuition and relicensure costs. While much stakeholder feedback was gathered from employee groups 2 years ago, it will be important to reintroduce and communicate this plan to our current staff. This will be accomplished through communication to stakeholder groups, including teachers, advisory teams, school leaders, and all staff impacted by the Career Ladder. It is important to remember that what we have outlined today is just the beginning of the HCPS Career Ladder. We look forward to expanding opportunities to include additional groups in the future. And at this time, I think Ms. Bolding and Ms. Jackson and Mr. Wack are going to join us to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. I love the collaborative effort here across departments, just like we ask our students to do. Reverend Cooper, I'm going to begin with you.
Thank you, Ms. Shea. Thank you for that presentation. I think it was a definitely apropos, coming right behind what we just saw from our two HR leaders in regards to our intentional creative efforts in assessing and addressing what they did, but now you all are coming back and are very specific to our workforce as far as not just our teachers, but the plethora of people that were listed that were eligible for what we're presenting today. So I want to just applaud you all for kind of just intentionality in regards to career pathways, as well as career choices. Everybody, like you keep saying, everybody does not want to just ascend to leadership. They would rather be micro more so with the students than they would be as far as administrators. When persons talk to me about aspirations, let's just hypothetically say if you're a teacher, you touch 30 people. If you're a building leader, you touch hundreds of people. If you are a superintendent, you touch thousands of people. It just depends upon which person you want to be. I'm appreciative that the teachers with a bachelor's degree, that advancement is not limited to only the attainment of a master's, doctorate, or MBCT status. I think that becomes cumbersome for some people who may not at this point want to pursue those avenues, but still want the opportunity for advancement as well as career satisfaction. Also, I think it's important that we reiterate that teachers may advance to higher pay grades through completing our specially designed professional learning pathways. And so thank you for sharing that as well. Can you kind of just speak to you all's perception of how our staff are receiving the various opportunities we're presenting? Are they excited about it? Do they see the value in it? Do they feel as though we are addressing specific needs that they have as well in regards to their personal growth and development?
Yeah, so while I don't have, I feel like I can't see you, Reverend Cooper. While I don't have specific, while I don't have specific data on that, I will tell you over 2 years ago, like I said, when we started this, there were several of us that went on the road show, if you will, and we went to high schools and we had forums where staff were able to give us feedback, and people were just very, very excited. Because I think, to your point, teachers who have bachelor's degrees or master's degrees who, for whatever reason, did not have any desire to get another advanced degree, felt like that they do engage in many types of professional learning that improves their craft every day. And the thought of being able to be recognized for that and being valued and respected for that was a very big selling point. And I do believe it will go very far in recruiting and retaining. It'll set us apart from our counterparts in the region, as I said earlier. So I think there's going to be much excitement across the division for being recognized for their work.
I can also add that when we started this process, we did a lot of research in looking at information from other school divisions across the country who have career ladders in place. And then very quickly had a group of Henrico teachers as an advisory committee. And I should say in that very large group of over 70 teachers on just the advisory, we had retired teachers, first-year teachers, teachers who had left the profession, teachers representing every magisterial district who have a very strong voice in creating. And the voice of our teachers really reflected the research, especially the research from the Department of Education that stated they want career advancement opportunities to be in line with other professions. So you may be a 20-year educator, but you want an opportunity to explore options while you could remain in the classroom. And you could have that impact on the adult learners in the school as you do with your students.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, again, for me personally, this is so important for us to always share with our staff how important they are to us, and anything we can do to constantly evolve and to be, again, the employee of choice, I think it will take us a long way. Can you all speak quickly, just briefly, about HCPU? I love what it's doing. I love, what it's about. Can you kind of just speak to participation from staff as far as them engaging HCPU and utilizing the benefits that it provides?
So HCPSU came to be as a result of COVID and our response to teachers in that one-stop source for professional learning. So while we have a lot of instructional resources in there at this time, the summer is when it has been hit most by the information and resources provided by our content specialists. In addition, the professional learning team has had professional learning opportunities available throughout, again, synchronous and both asynchronous formats for teachers to participate in. We're really excited as this site continues to develop. You'll hear more about how it will expand through our teaching and learning framework. We really are creating one place where our teachers can go for any type of resource or professional learning that they need.
Well, thank you so much, you two, for sharing that. I'm excited to hear the progress, as well as I stated with Ms. Jackson and her efforts with Ms. Bowden. So thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Reverend Kruber. Ms. Ogburn?
Thank you. I'm going to repeat myself just a little bit here because it was said earlier that we're being innovative and leading the way. I mean, seriously, yes. But I remember years ago, and Reverend Cooper will remember this, we were at a meeting with the Board of Supervisors, and Mr. Vitulkas made a comment. He said, have you ever considered career ladders like we have on the county side? And we got into this big discussion about career ladders and the unified pay plan and how this, makes our both sides a little bit more aligned by doing something like this. And it's, I'm probably one of the older people in the room, and so I've been hearing about this forever. About what teachers want to be able to advance. But self-improvement is so important. And being able to feel good about yourself, doing your job to the best of your ability, and like I said earlier, honing your skills. And it is very similar to what is out there in the corporate world. And so for me, that's exciting. But I'm especially glad to see that it's come back, that we're reimbursing tuition costs, making this an affordable way, having our in-house classes and stuff, like you said, Tracy, a lot of it's over the summer, but some of these things were subject to budget cuts in years past, and having this come back as a reimbursement when you take a class, that is something that's attractive to retaining our teachers and to recruiting them, I would think. So I'm really excited about this and where it can go, where it can lead. And if you can give us feedback as you go forward, what you're hearing, and again, we may have to tweak it as it goes on, it's new, but I'm really excited. So I appreciate all the work, I really do. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins.
Well done. I'm very, very pleased to learn more about this effort and the opportunities to grow professionally. The monetary opportunities are huge. That helps with decision-making. And so very pleased to see that added and the alignment with the input you've received. So many of us talk to many educators and we hear a whole lot. And, my comment of well done is because what I have heard in the conversations I've had are aligned with the results that I've seen in your presentation and the words that you spoke. So thank you very much and job well done. And I look forward as to what Mrs. Ogburn shared. I do see there will probably be some changes. I can see some. But well done in your efforts on today and look forward to future efforts of tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins. Ms. Kinsella?
Yeah, I'm just grateful. We started this process and now we finally get to see it. I look forward to all the details, all the changes, as my colleagues have said, all the details of the plan, the numbers associated with everything. Mrs. Shea and actually all of us love numbers up here, but just to see, one of my favorite, just to see it come to life and the plan details, literally. I know that when this was posted, that's actually what I heard from some of our educators, that they were very interested in the details of it. But just very excited to finally see it. And, I'm a big believer in relevant professional development and learning. And this is it. And my favorite line from your presentation is, leadership no longer has to be a pathway out of the classroom. Well, that's just an amazing thing, because we can't afford for anyone to leave the classroom. We don't want you to leave the classroom. We know you're burnout, and hopefully we're going to help address those issues, right? But that's just, it says it all. It's an opportunity for growth. And when I was doing some business research about, how to recruit, retain, reward, they're saying, and as Mrs. Shea said, work-life balance, right? It's not a degree program, right? It's not too much of a time commitment, and it's in areas of interest. How exciting is that? And just employees are looking for employers that support and empower them. We give you the career ladder. Just thank you so much. You're welcome. Ms. Shea.
Thank you, Ms. Kinsella. I wrote down the exact same quote as my favorite when Dr. Wesson said that leadership no longer has to be a pathway out of the classroom. And I think that's what we're already seeing in our buildings. We see these organic PLCs that just crop up, and that is where some of the most innovative instruction is coming from, but also some of the best teacher supports and student supports, right? These organically grown PLCs. And so as we look at how micro-credentialing can help support those things that are already happening to reward that, right? It's super exciting, because we see leadership in the classroom. And I think what this really gets to is leadership level compensation doesn't have to make you leave the classroom. And I think that is why this is so important. And it loops back to treating and rewarding our educators like the professionals they are. I'll repeat myself from earlier that our educators are skilled professionals, right? And this acknowledges that. And I'm hoping it will keep some of those master teachers in the classroom and not feel like they have to jump over to the administrative side, which some of them make great administrators, but some of them, their heart is still in the classroom, and it allows them to stay in the classroom, but still move forward in terms of growing their career and their compensation, which I think is so important and so unique in our field. I think one thing that's going to be really, really important with this is communicating this with clarity. Dr. Cashwell has put so much work into, across our division, making things more transparent and digestible and understandable, and I feel like our compensation right now is still one of those things left behind that's still really muddy. Multiple times a year, I get emails, and as a staff member, when I was a staff member, I was confused about this too, and I didn't actually learn the difference until I was on the board, but that steps don't mean years. Right. And I think that's one thing that is still not well communicated, and it sounds like would still not be the case in this particular plan. And so I think as you all work with Mr. Wack and work with Ms. Cox on how do we clearly communicate to our staff, so we're as transparent as possible as to how our compensation works and how this weaves in. And so I think that's going to be a challenge. I think it's a challenge we can overcome, but as we develop these conversations, we still have confusion about our current compensation plan that we've been in for a long time. And so communicating with clarity really where we are and how this weaves in, I think will be of critical importance to our staff. And then the other thing, just making sure our micro credentials that we kind of endorse and put in our career ladder are things that are really accessible to teachers. And I know HCPSU makes them accessible, but also acknowledging some of our teachers pursue some really great additional programs outside of Henrico, either through a grant or an award, or, you know, they decide to invest their own money into, you know, something they're passionate about, you know, being able to reward that, but really making sure, you know, this HCPSU makes things that are accessible to our teachers that may not have those other opportunities, and also that they're things that really move the needle for our students and really impact what's happening in the classroom, right, as we think about it. And two that came to mind just to think about, in addition to kind of our instruction-rooted ones, our trauma-informed care. Mm-hmm. We have some of our educators that have become really versed in trauma-informed care, and that's so important, especially now. And so looking at maybe how could we loop that into a micro-credentialing. And also dual enrollment eligibility. We know that, so I have a physics degree and I have a master's in education. I am not qualified to teach dual enrollment because I don't have master's credits in physics, right? So that's a different piece than necessarily than a master's degree, but it's not quite a doctor, you know, it's just kind of that in the middle. But as we look for more opportunities for our students and we look at growing dual enrollment, I know one of our biggest barriers to that is educators that are qualified. And so if we could perhaps tie that into a micro-credential, that could provide some incentive to help either recruit those individuals or individuals that have that interest to go ahead and pursue those extra subject level higher ed credits so that they would be eligible. And that's all.
Oh, thank you for that feedback.
Oh, redirect to Mrs. Kinsella from the Brooklyn District.
Yes. On our looking ahead slide, notify those receiving credential salary adjustments. What does this look like?
Yeah, so in the very near future, in collaboration again with all of the departments, we will be sending out a survey to the staff because we really want to make sure that we're capturing all the certifications and the degrees that the staff have. You know, some of our certifications and degrees, like our doctoral degree, we have not rewarded our teachers for that before. And so sometimes teachers may engage in those certifications or degrees and they don't, you know, notify human resources because there hasn't been a need. And so we want to make sure that we do everything we can to cast that wide net and to capture all of that information. And then once we have all of that information, we'll move forward with the compensation.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. And then you mentioned the provisional licensing as a part of this. And I did actually receive quite a bit of feedback regarding provisional licensures. And just, what is the best way to say it? Just how hard these teachers are working, and folks want to know exactly where are they working, and just what are the additional things put on top of these provisionally licensed folks, and perhaps are they in some of our most challenged schools, right? I'd really like to receive more information about that.
Okay, we'll collaborate with human resources, or do you want to answer now, or you want to get? Yeah, we'll collaborate and get back to you.
I mean, it's partly recruit, retain, reward. It's partly career ladder.
Right.
It's mentioned in here as well.
Absolutely.
Can you explain the career ladder piece?
Do you want me to speak to it, Kenya? The career ladder piece for provisionally licensed? I mean, okay. So I think Kenya actually spoke to it in her presentation, but eventually what we're hoping to have is the 6 courses that are required for a provisionally licensed teacher. We will offer those through HCPSU.
Through HCPSU, okay.
Yes, we're not there. That is our hope to be there, hopefully for the first couple courses by spring of next year.
By spring of next year.
And those will be taught by Henrico staff, HCPSU adjunct faculty.
Okay, thank you for that point of clarity. I mean, it was just the 2 presentations and the excitement, career, how did it all fit in? Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair Shea.
Ms. Kinsella, colleagues, anything else? We'll let you off the hook. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks again for your great questions. I know we owe board members some follow-ups related to both the recruit and retain presentation as well as some details on the career ladder. And thanks again to all who've made this possible. And we look forward to continuing to communicate the fine details and most importantly to getting it implemented. So very exciting. All right, the next item for you is the annual report from our School Health Advisory Board, also known as SHAB, and Christina Vitek is here to make that presentation. And then just as a point of clarity, at our monthly meeting, I will be seeking the board's approval of the proposed committee members. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Christina Vitek.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Shea, members of the board, Dr. Cashwell, and guests. I am Christina Vitek. I'm the Director of Psychological Services, Student Support, and Wellness, and I'm happy to be here today to provide an update on the School Health Advisory Board, also known as SHAB. SHAB has long existed as an essential committee here in Henrico County Public Schools. However, with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, SHAB did pause, and we moved to implementing the superintendent's health committee since that time. However, I am pleased to share at this moment that we have reinstalled SHAB. We have new and revised bylaws effective September 2020. Per the new bylaws, SHAB has 4 primary purposes. The first is to assist the Henrico County School Board and Superintendent in the development of school health policy. Second, SHAB is charged to review and monitor the status of the Coordinated School Health Program, which includes health education, physical education, health services, nutrition services, counseling, psychological services, a healthy school environment, health promotion for staff, and family community involvement. Third, SHAB is to advise the school board and superintendent of matters related to school health issues. And finally, SHAB is to advocate action to meet identified needs and concerns. SHAB functions to provide visibility for coordinated school health within the school division and community. SHAB seeks to promote parent, citizen, and professional involvement in the schools and to provide a forum for constructive review of health issues while recruiting community health resources and facilitating mutual understanding between schools and communities. It is important to note that the Superintendent's Health Committee will continue to exist alongside SHAB. During the fall of 2021, HCPS actively recruited for SHAB membership, advertising through PTAs, the Henrico Schools website and social media, as well as by sending paper flyers home with students in some schools. We received a total of 129 applications. Membership on SHAB is a 3-year term and is limited to 20 members. Membership must include 10 parent members, 2 from each of the 5 magisterial districts, 1 elementary and 1 secondary principal, and the 8 remaining seats are available for community members, students, or other professionals. Ex officio non-voting members of the committee include a school board member, the school health supervisor, chief of staff, chief human resource officer, and chief learning officer. The chief of staff will present information from the Superintendent's Health Committee to SHAB. It is with great pleasure that I present the membership elect slate for SHAB. As you can see on this slide, we have successfully fulfilled our bylaw expectations and have 2 parent representatives from each magisterial district listed here. In addition to the 10 parent members, our membership elect slate also includes 8 community members representing different areas of expertise and representation from across Henrico. We are especially excited to have a student member as well. We welcome 2 principals representing elementary and secondary to round out the membership elect slate. Additionally, the following slate of officers is presented to serve through May. Officers of SHAB typically serve a 1-year term and include a chair, vice chair, and secretary. But the committee agreed to modify this term during this reinstallment year. Officers-elect are as follows: Allison Alford for chair, Amber Lancaster for vice chair, and Hannah Robbins-Bruce for secretary. Although the officers-elect are unable to be here today, they do look forward to the opportunity to meet you in the future. In alignment with the expectations set forth in the bylaws, numerous priorities for SHAB have been identified for the current school year. These priorities include supporting students in achieving a healthy body and mind, developing conscientious and respectful digital citizens, and reviewing new legislation and any necessary policy updates related to school health services, such as albuterol inhalers and Narcan in the schools. SHAB has met twice already this year and will meet 2 more times before June. The meetings are open to the public and all are welcome to attend. Meeting dates are posted on the Henrico Schools public calendar. At this time, I welcome any questions from the board.
Thank you so much, Ms. Vitek. I will begin with Ms. Atkins since this is her committee.
Yep. Outstanding. I just want to sing and dance because an outstanding, phenomenal group of individuals that I was able to meet and speak with. And Ms. Vitek, your efforts, and Ms. Gilbert's efforts, and Dr. Hughes' efforts, and there was a variety of individuals pushing, advocating, and getting us to the point, one, where we are being very intentional about making sure that this group was diverse. And I so appreciate that because the fruitfulness from that is going to be so evident that we're going to, I think we'll see some really quick impacts to our school system, actually, because of the level of different personalities, cultures, all of those things. Also, looking at the priorities that were chosen is a testament to share that these individuals are grounded, they understand what's going on from so many different angles, and the richness of the conversations in the room to move quickly. We know that there are priorities and the stories that were told. It was outstanding, and whether it's Nataki Petty, I think Fairfield HBA, many of those individuals, I remember their names, but that was the first time that I met them because they left an impression on me. And so I say to my colleagues, there is going to be great work that you're going to see from this. We can get back to looking at legislation that is happening, that we need to pay attention to, impacting our school nurses, looking at the inhalers and the requirements for that in our schools, all of these other things that we now have opportunity to put some focus on. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for being part of SHAB. We really appreciate you on that board.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins. Ms. Kinsella?
Yes, I'm very excited about not just, well, actually getting away from the Henrico Health Committee, if you will. No offense to Dr. Tigan or anyone else, but I'm very excited about SHAB coming back. And like Ms. Atkins said, the work that went into recruiting the right team. Very excited about it, but when I look at the list, I have to say we have 49,000 students and I only see one student sitting on it. So maybe we can use the Superintendent Advisory Committee of Students to lend voice to SHAB, or somehow give greater student voice to SHAB, since students and our employees are really who we're trying to serve with this. Dr. Cashwell?
Great point. And, you know, oftentimes when it comes to a formal commitment to sit on a committee, we might get less involvement, but we have a number of mechanisms. You mentioned one, the Superintendent Student Advisory Committee, and I know you're the board liaison there. We've brought any number of issues and topics in front of them, from school nutrition to get their feedback to our curriculum and student voice there. This will be another great opportunity to have this group leverage the students in any way. And then we can also take on other student groups. Yeah, so I think there's lots of opportunity to elevate student voice here, and point well taken.
Yeah, if I may just add, recommend that to the SHAB for consideration, that they look at all the different student group and voices, because this really is for the students and the employees. Love the priorities. They're spot on. Healthy body and mind, and just emotionally right now, I feel like our students and staff have needed the emotional support throughout the pandemic, but especially right now. Something about right now just feels heavier to me, and I hear, not only to me, but to a lot of folks that I hear from. So I applaud the priorities, and if I may, just add a couple more as part of the wellness. At the secondary level especially, you've already got the social media. I applaud that. Vaping and smoking pot on our premises, or even off premises, just the vaping, I'm hearing really picked up during the pandemic, more so than prior to it. So I'd just like to add that as a healthy body and mind priority for the committee for consideration. But just thank you for the work you've been doing and you're going to do. I'm so excited it's reestablished.
Yes.
Mrs. Shea.
Thank you, Ms. Kinsella. Ms. Ogburn.
I'll be real quick, but I used to be the board rep to the SHAB committee. 130 people wanted to be on this committee. That is amazing to me, because back in the day when I was on this committee many years ago, we had a hard time getting people to participate. And I just think the importance of this wasn't really, we didn't shine a light on it back then. And so I'm glad we are now. And I think to what Mrs. Kinsella said, mental health and wellness of our students is such a important topic right now and such a concern. So I'm glad this committee's coming back. I know there's important work coming because, if you don't have a healthy student sitting in the seat, that's where it all begins. And we need them. We need to put those supports in place to get our kids in the right place. So I am glad to see it back. Thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Ogburn. Reverend Cooper.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Shea. So again, Ms. Vitek, again, thank you for your presentation. I echo the sentiments of my peers. I just want to say I'm pleased that SHAB has been re-engaged. I will not go as far as the enthusiasm and excitement of my colleague to my left, Mrs. Kinsella, in her statement in regards to our health committee, but I am excited that you all are re-engaged. It's another example, I believe, of our intentional efforts to move toward our new normal, that we are getting back to business, not the way that we did, but the way that we will now. And so student health is such a high priority for us, body and mind, again, echoing what has been said. So I look forward to hearing the success or the challenges that the priorities present. And thanks again to everyone who's on this committee.
Thank you, Reverend Cooper. And Ms. Vitek, it's so great to see you in this context. And I always enjoy seeing you, but so often it's when you're actively providing supports to our students after various events. And so it's great to see you in this context. So I just have two things, point of clarity for our community and constituents. First of all, can we talk a little bit about the Venn diagram between SHAB and the health committee? So is it a subsection? Is it overlapping, or are they separate?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it is a Venn diagram. I think that just naturally the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has trickled into every other area of health and wellness. So as a result, we will be talking about how COVID-19 has impacted the mental health, the emotional health, the physical health of students, how it's driven new legislation, how changes may be coming. So I think a Venn diagram is most likely the best visual descriptor. However, we were very clear, very intentional as we built out the recommendations for membership on SHAB, that we included folks that were not only seeking to be part of the board for COVID reasons. That really lies with the health committee. The superintendent's health committee will remain kind of the leaders in focusing solely on all things COVID-19. We'll rely on Dr. Teigen to share with SHAB sort of updates and communications with the SHAB group, bringing all of that information from health committee back. And there may be some overlap, but SHAB has really identified all these additional priorities that need our attention as well, that the health committee has not been able to focus on.
Thank you. I think that's so important for clarity. So it sounds like Dr. Teigen is the linking connection between those two committees that function separately, but obviously their work impacts each other.
And Ms. Shea, if I may add, I think also one piece of conversation that I want to add to this is that if you see the Health Committee as the crisis committee, and then see SHAB as your day-to-day operations. And so the activity and work of SHAB is continuum. The hope is that the Health Committee is crisis-related, emergency-related, and the hope is, as we continue to decline in numbers, that there's less and less effort from the Health Committee. And as you know, there are other factors now that have taken hold of the impact of the Health Committee. So I just want to be very clear, especially for those that are watching, that are trying to understand the School Health Advisory Board. We are day-to-day. We are looking at mental health now, maybe mental health in the future, but not in a crisis situation. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, I think so. And without hopefully dragging on that point too long, I think it all points well stated. I mean, you think about the health committee functioning to help us manage practices and operations during pandemic times, right? And so the thought is as we exit the pandemic conditions and there's less of a operational impact on a daily basis, that the SHAB remains in perpetuity carrying the torch for all things health and wellness. And so that's really the difference.
Perfect. I appreciate all three of you providing that clarity, because I think that's a question that the community is going to have. And then just the other question I had you already answered, but we'll just reiterate it. Your meetings are open to the public, correct?
Absolutely. We welcome everybody to join us, including additional students. So if this is an announcement about SHAB to the community, we do want to welcome everybody to join us. At our last month's meeting, we did have other community members present, and so we were so excited.
And the dates are posted on the HCPS webpage, so any community members can attend. They won't be able to vote, but they can attend and listen and perhaps participate in conversation.
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Anything else, colleagues? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. For the next item, I have three operational items for which I'll be seeking your approval at our monthly meeting, but want to offer an opportunity just to share that you have been provided attachments and specifics related to the three items for which I'm seeking approval, and would also offer an opportunity should you have any questions. I would note that Mr. Pritchard could not be with us on short notice due to a personal medical situation, but he, I, or other staff would be happy to answer any questions you have. Review of the proposal for the tennis courts. So later I will be seeking your support for Musco Sports Lighting LLC in the amount of $186,000 for new outdoor lighting on the tennis court area of Glen High School. Do you have any questions about that project? No? All right.
It's not new. How did you describe it? It's new. It doesn't currently exist, just for point of clarity.
Correct.
For my colleagues. Glen High School does not currently have lights. It's the only high school that does not have lit courts.
That's right. This provides new lighting for those tennis courts. Also, later I'll be asking for your support related to approving the H21 Group Incorporated in the amount of $139,582.87 for the replacement of the main gym floor at Rolfe Middle School, and additionally the amount of $154,587.16 for the replacement of the auxiliary gym floor at Freeman High School. Are there any questions about those projects or those floor replacements? No? All right. And also we'll be seeking a construction contract to be awarded to the Carpentry and Painting Experts LLC in the amount of $133,400 for the replacement of lighting and ceilings. This is a partial replacement at Godwin High School.
I'll just jump in with a brief comment there. In a school that does not have windows, new lighting makes such a difference. And I know we've used meal tax for it before, and the principal has walked around and showed me where the new lighting is. And it really, I mean, is not as good as some windows, which it's with the architecture of the school just isn't possible, but it does bring more of that like bright white light to make you feel like you have some, vitamin D. So anyway, that lighting will be really essential for the school.
All right, and Chair Shea, members of the board, that concludes any items I have for you for this meeting.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cashwell. The next item on our agenda is unfinished business. Colleagues, do you have any unfinished business to share with us? All right, hearing none. The next item on our agenda is new business. Colleagues, do you have any new business to bring to the table today? All right, hearing none. The last item on the agenda is the announcement of meeting dates. We will have a monthly meeting tonight here at 6:30, which will be live streamed. Additionally, our next work session is scheduled for Thursday, March 10th, 2022 at 1 p.m. here in Newbridge. The meeting time may be adjusted as needed. This meeting is adjourned.